Afternoon, guys. It's me again, Rapolas, and we have another episode here in Erudito Podcast. So lately, it's been hard days for Lithuania and for me. We are again at home working with computers all day, and I'm already tired. But however, after a week, we are having Christmas, so that's awesome. And anyways, we still have our great podcast. We still have talks, and we are very happy, aren't we? Don't worry, guys. We are recording it remotely, so there is no way to get sick. And actually, we are recording in very long distance. I'm in Lithuania, Kaunas, while my guest is in South Africa, in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And I guess let's go straight to the business here. In our remote studio, we have a very interesting guest. She's a teacher in Erudito Podcast. She is also from Republic of South Africa, which is awesome because it's so interesting to hear foreigner stories. And she is also a first international class teacher. It's Talia Shaban. Hello.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on your podcast today.
It's awesome that you came. So Talia, what's up? How are you?
I am still just recovering from the travel here, from the COVID stress.
It's been a long trip, huh?
Yeah, and getting used to the weather is so different. It's warm, it's our summertime. And I already got sunburned, so my skin is definitely more acclimatized to the Lithuanian cold and not the southern warm anymore. But otherwise we're good. We also, the COVID situation isn't great here either, so we're masked up and having to be extra careful, but at least we get to be home and see our family over this time. So
and a little left to Christmas, huh? Are you waiting?
Yeah, I mean, we don't really do a big thing for Christmas with my family, mainly because I'm Jewish, so we didn't we didn't celebrate Christmas, but we do something just for the festivity of it all. So we will have a small thing. It will be a very different Christmas, I think, for everyone this year. As so many households won't be able to meet and celebrate together. So we will see what it will be like, but it definitely won't be around a fire. It's normally around an outdoor fire where we grill. So very different. Swimming in the pool, lying in the sun. That kind of thing.
It's kind of different than ours in Lithuania, you know.
Very different. It's very different.
Okay, so I guess we can just jump to the business. And as you know, I ask teachers at their stories, their time at school, who were they, and how was it? And I would like to start with how did your time at school look like as a student? And was it fun, or did you like to be there?
So I loved school. I had a great schooling experience, and I actually went back, and my first teaching post was at the school that I went to for my whole educational upbringing, which was special and interesting. So I went to a Jewish day school in South Africa, a private school, and I started there when I was in the preschool age, and I went right up to my matric in the same school system. And it was, for the most part, very positive, good friends. I had amazing, inspiring teachers, and definitely my primary years were so happy and like all the things that one hopes for their child to have in their primary years. And then, high school was also good, a little bit more confusing and challenging. But I think I had a pretty good schooling experience for what we knew that was good during that time. Now when I think about what is a good schooling experience, I have a different understanding of it. So but at the time I think it was good.
Okay, and what kind of person were you back then? Like in the school, were you more like who's always the first in the class, like always know the answer, or always that cheater's friend, or more that bad girl who like breaking rules and against system?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not the latter. I was very like committed to my schoolwork, and I was very actively involved in school life. I was we called it a school counselor. We had a school council.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like the student leaders of the school. So I was on the student council. I was really involved in our community, like kind of like the CAS that you guys do. We had something called CAG, which was also community action. And so I headed up that organization. I was very involved in all of that kind of thing. So no, I was not the bad girl. I was not the sneaking out, going partying over the weekends. I have no exciting stories like that to share. So.
And what did you do in that counselor? What was your role?
So our school was actually, when you leave primary school, you go into something called a middle school, which is 3 years of schooling. Yeah. And then after the middle school, you go into the high school, which is the final 3 years. And both exit years, which would be year 9 and year 12, have student leadership councils. So I was first on the one in year 9, and that's where I got very involved in the community action group. And so I ran a committee. So it meant that one afternoon after school a week, my committee would meet, and we would normally go and do some kind of community service. We would have ongoing projects. It would be did homes for Habitat for Humanity, like a project building homes, like lots of litter projects, working with the street children in South Africa. And then when I got into high school, and I was on the student council again in high school, I headed up the same organization, but it was slightly more involved at a high school level, and it had sort of different. It wasn't just about. I was trying to bring it more actually into the school life, as opposed to it being a thing that people would do after school. So it was working more with integrating that giving back idea into day-to-day school life. And it was working with, there were events that we hosted to raise funds, working with lots of donors, organizing events, reaching out to people, like stakeholders in our school and community. So it was lots of fundraising and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so that was on the organization side, but on the side of being a counselor, it was, I guess, you voted in by your peers. So it's the people that they want to see there. You would work with the management, the executive team of your school. So your principal and your deputy principal, your heads of phase. Yeah. And you were, tasked with certain projects that you would undertake, and helping just to create a certain ethos within the school, and learning also just as counselors how to work as a team. And so it was fun. I enjoyed it. Like, we had a good time, and we didn't have the kind of school like you might see in movies where it's very strict, and that wasn't our school. But it was more about teamwork, and we had a very nice group of counselors. So.
And what do you miss the most from the school? Like, students, for example, before they say they hate it, being there, being in schools, but in the end, the last day, I don't know, how is that called? Prom, or like
your graduation, your matriculation.
They cry and usually do not want to go in different ways. What kind was your last day?
what was my last day?
Yeah, like what do you miss the most from the school?
I think I miss, I don't really know what I miss. I feel like I don't really miss anything.
Okay.
Maybe because I'm still in a school environment almost every day, and so the things that I love about school I get to do all the time. And I kept friendships with the people that were important to me.
Yeah.
So I don't have any friends that I miss from my schooling days. I miss some of my teachers, especially the ones that I had a really good connection with. But for the most part, I don't really miss. I mean, I'm still in school, so I don't miss school all that much, or my schooling all that much.
Okay. And now you're a teacher. So, what I thought, why? Like, what had the biggest impact on your choices, for example, for a future? You know, to become a teacher. I mean, like from teachers or parents, or like there was some fun lessons or your hobbies that you choose. When did you knew that, like, oh, I'll become a teacher?
It actually took me a while to figure it out. I didn't have a very straightforward plan after school. I started studying at the University of Cape Town here, and was going more towards a direction of economics and politics. And I just really didn't enjoy the university feel. I'd come from such a small school, and I found the big university, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I felt limited, and so I wasn't there for very long. And then I took the rest of the year off, but I didn't travel or anything like that. I was unprepared for it, so I worked in an admin job, and I realized, well, I'm definitely never going into admin because that is not my thing. And I knew I didn't also want to be studying heavily in academia, so that wasn't my thing. And then I studied at culinary school, and I became a chef, and I worked as a chef for a bit.
Oh, really?
And then that I was like, that wasn't my thing long term, although I still love cooking and food. And then I had to find some work. I had like an awkward 7 months between no longer chefing and waiting to start a new something. And I got some work as a private tutor. And one day I was visiting some family overseas, and I was just sitting at the table, and I said, I really love teaching. And my aunt turned to me and said, well, become a teacher. And I was like, oh, yes, that's exactly what I should do. So when I came home, I applied, and I knew I wanted to be in the foundation phase, which for us is the primary years. In Lithuania, we call it the primary years. In South Africa, foundation phase. And so I started that January when universities opened up, and then I studied for 4 years. So it was, when I look back on it now though, from like being a little kid, my sister and I used to play this teacher game. So she would be the student and I was the teacher, and that was like a standard weekend game. And so I think I always had it in me that that's where I was going. And I think being a teacher, it's got all the mix of things that I need as a person. So it's fulfilling in my career.
And do you like to be a teacher?
I love teaching. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be a teacher for my whole life, but I think I will stay in education for the most part. I have other passions and interests, but nothing ever feels like it's going, like I feel that the teaching it's hard work and it's a challenge, but it's effortlessly challenging. It's naturally challenging. It's where I feel I can, push through it. Whereas when I think of something like starting a restaurant or doing something with food, I don't know where to begin. It feels so overwhelming. So I sort of follow that feeling, and for
Yeah.
now that feeling is very much, I'm very happy being a teacher, and I still have so much to learn, so
And
it's still exciting.
What? Okay, you have a lot to learn, but what did you learn already from being a teacher?
What have I learned already? I've learned that, I've learned a lot of things. I've learned, I think the biggest thing I've learned is that it's not really actually what we're teaching the children, like in a typical, what people think children come to school to do. It's the subtle messages that we imparting to them, and that's from them being in our presence day in and day out, that's actually what makes the biggest difference to them. They can go anywhere to learn maths and to learn science and to learn a new language, but it's more than just those subjects that and it's learning how to do that, and how to do it in a way that's not also pushing your own agenda onto children.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is something I'm still very much learning, but it's definitely been something that I've noticed makes a far bigger impact, and it's what builds the connection with me and my class a lot more than just what we're learning about.
Yeah.
So it's very, I think that's been the biggest all-rounded learning experience.
And you are a first grade teacher, yes?
So this year I'm a composite first grade, second grade teacher, because I have a mix of ages in my class. So I've got some children at a first grade age and some at a second grade age, and sometimes we're all together as a whole class working, and it depends what we're doing and what lesson it is, or
but still you're an international teacher, and working with international kids. And how awesome is to teach international kids? There are a lot of different cultures and a lot of different experiences, and do you like it? Is it cool?
It's very cool. I mean, at the moment, my class is interestingly not that international. It's international in its unique way that it's all the children in my class are Lithuanian speaking.
Oh, okay.
But they've all come, most of them had never lived in Lithuania, but they've grown up with one or both parents who do speak fluent Lithuanian. They speak fluent English too. Many of them actually speak 3 languages. So they've not actually lived in Lithuania. They've lived in the UK, they've lived in Spain, they've lived in, a new little boy in my class came from Oman. So but they are still Lithuanian. So it's interesting because it's a different sort of version of a Lithuanian person.
Yeah.
And that they are still very much Lithuanian and connect very much to the country and speak the language, but at the same time they've also started their childhood and their lives out of the country, and so they have an idea of they've had just a different start. And so it's very interesting because one of the things, and I'm so envious of it, is that I have children who speak 3 languages and they're 6 years old, and I'm just oh, you guys are so lucky. So, and they're switching between English and Spanish and Lithuanian, and I've got another girl who speaks a bit of German, and so that is so exciting, and just listening to their experiences and talking to their parents, and listening to the journeys that they as a family have been on is really great. So I love that. I hope that there are some more foreign international people that come into the school to add a mix of more diversity. But I also know, obviously, with COVID and everything is turned upside down right now. So, but I mean, as my first abroad teaching experience, it's definitely been fantastic and exciting, and I mean, yeah, just experiencing the Lithuanian culture and then having some students from other countries as well has been, it's been very cool. I love it. It's so fun.
Yeah. And why did you choose to teach children? Like, you could choose, I don't know, high school students, or I don't know, to be in university. You said like you didn't like university, but for example, I don't know, older students. Why primary? Why primary school?
I think probably because my primary years were my best schooling years, and I also needed something that was very creative, because I like to create and I like to make, and I needed a space that I could do that. And so and I don't necessarily mean in like an art and craft way, but it's also every day it's about being creative, and the way you think, you have to think creatively. And for me, I just felt that it was more present maybe in the younger years, also because you're teaching them, you are their core person throughout the day, and so you are looking for those moments where you can connect the learning experiences for them, where you can give them a unique context, where you can see that realization and that they've made the connections themselves, because you're not just with them for an isolated set period of time. You are basically with them the whole time. And so that, as for me as a teacher, also gives me that creative outlet, and like, okay, we're going to do some sports now, but our sports is all going to be connected to the shapes that we've been learning about in our unit on maths, and then we're going to do a writing piece and it's going to be about those shapes. So it's like weaving it all together like that to make it one big collage of their learning. And you don't, at least in South Africa, you don't get to do that when you're out of the primary years, because the children start having more isolated subjects and specializing subjects that they choose. So I wanted to have all of it, and so that was why the primary years were just the better choice for me.
I wish I had that kind of teacher, you know. And you're working in Lithuania. How long are you in Lithuania?
I've been in Lithuania for a year and 3 months, I think.
Okay. So for me, the biggest and the most interesting question, like, why Lithuania? I am really crazy, because people come here in a small country in the north, while they could, I don't know, come to Germany or France or, I don't know, UK or somewhere else. And for example, you came here, I've searched, it's like about 10,000 kilometers from South Africa.
Well, I knew I wanted to leave South Africa. I needed the opportunity to just grow and see the world and have a different experience of life. I really wanted to be somewhere in Europe, on a personal side, because traveling as a South African is really difficult. We need visas for everywhere, and traveling Europe as a South African is tough because they're very strict with your Schengen visas. And so I've never really done like a whole Europe travel, and you either have to just do it in like 3 months, or you have to do it staggered throughout your life and each time go and get those visas. And so I thought, well, if I live there, I can live and I can travel. And I knew I wanted to experience Europe. And so I tried to get into schools in Europe. It's very difficult for South Africans to get into European schools. And amazingly, Erudito and Lithuania is allowing teachers, foreign teachers who are first language English, to come in. And so, and sometimes, you know, it's nice being a part of that growing feeling. I haven't had it on the other side, but teaching markets in places like Singapore and Hong Kong, it's very tough to get in there. The markets are saturated, and it's where everyone initially went. And so now it's really difficult, and it's through who you know a lot of the time. And so when you're just starting out and you don't have all of those connections and you're a young teacher, you sort of have to be a bit more creative. And Lithuania, I always knew about Lithuania because my heritage is Lithuanian. My great-grandfather is from Lithuania.
Oh, okay.
So my direct descent is Lithuanian. And so for me, it wasn't this random place. I grew up, knowing about Lithuania, as did most of my friends at school, as we all come from that same lineage. So it was, and I was just go for it. I mean, it's not like it all happened so fast, and so it felt right. And that's how I ended up there.
Awesome. Like, and I was thinking, gosh, like the world is so small, really.
The world is so small. It's crazy.
And
it really is.
What do you like being here? What do you like in Lithuania, and what the most?
So I love how, and this is probably going to sound strange, but I love how safe it is.
Okay.
I think Lithuanian people might not understand that because you are, and this is how it should be, that it's safe like that. But coming from South Africa, it's nerve-wracking. Just, driving home at night, you're worried about your safety. There's so much crime, and being able to walk around Kaunas on a Saturday night at 11 o'clock in the dark on your cell phone, no worries in the world. I mean, that is just, it's something unimaginable when you live in South Africa. So I love the safety side of it, but I also love there's so much culture. When you walk around the streets, the buildings tell you such a story about what the country has been through. And even though I find it hard with the language barriers sometimes, what's also really beautiful to see is that there's so much unification amongst people in Lithuania for the country and for the nation. And I do not have that experience in South Africa. It's a melting pot of 11 different languages and all these different ethnicities and tribes and culture, and there's so much divide.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of unity as well, but there's also a lot of divide. And in Lithuania, I just feel much more of a unity and a commonness that's shared amongst the people that I haven't had in South Africa. So, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful country. It's, the rivers, the nature, the forests, and it's novel still, the winter.
Yeah.
So we haven't got sick of it yet. It's still exciting. It's like, oh my gosh, is it going to snow? Is it going to snow? And it's so dark so early. It's so cool. So I haven't yet got tired of the cold in the winter.
Yeah.
It's still like a complete thrill to screenshot the weather on my weather app and send it home and be like, look, feels like -9 outside.
Oh, it's snow image.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I've also met some really awesome people and just heard their stories and got to know them, and some colleagues who are just passionate about helping me learn the language and sharing with me about Lithuania. It's really cool. So yeah, so it's been really positive. Very, yeah. Awesome, really awesome. And what is the most, interesting thing here? Like, what's the biggest strangeness was here, I guess? Like, you came and it was, oh, wow, okay, it's like that. I still find the purple soup kind of strange because it's like everything goes into the soup, like even eggs, which is interesting.
Okay.
So some of the food things is a bit interesting for me because it's so different to the food that I'm used to eating. And I don't know, what else do I find? I mean, I've never experienced people pack shopping bags. I mean, swipe at the tills like they do at the Lidl. I mean, that is an experience. That my first day and I was there, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get used to this? But on a more serious note, I don't really know. There wasn't sort of, I think, you know, I find Lithuanian people, they're very law-abiding people, and that's something that stood out for me. And it wasn't a bad shock. It was just a shock. It was a culture shock because it's something I'm used to seeing, but it's something I'm so grateful for. And the cities are so clean. People don't litter. People are respectful of the shared spaces, and they follow the rules. They cross at the pedestrian crossings, and so in that, I was shocked about that. Like, I was shocked that our apartment block hasn't got a security anything. Anyone can just walk in. So, but they were shocks, not in a negative cultural shock way. I haven't really had. I think the hardest thing is the language. Okay. Because I find it a hard language to speak. And my psycho-vocabulary.
It's hard. Yeah. Even for Lithuanian, you know.
Yeah. So I'm getting better slowly, but it is a difficult language to learn to speak. But I think that's probably been the hardest part.
Yeah. And you mentioned South Africa. I would like to ask you, what is so great there? Like, I really would love to come there because it's Africa, but I've heard that Africa is pretty dangerous, isn't it?
Well, it depends what kind of experience you have as a person traveling. I mean, Africa is a very big continent, so it's very diverse in its continent as well. And there's parts of Africa that are not safe to go into, and there's other parts of Africa that are beautiful and very, I mean, not safe as in what Europeans might consider safe, but that are, you know, you don't need to feel worried. And South Africa is, unfortunately, there's a lot of crime, and there's a lot of disadvantaged populations of people here, which is what fuels the cycle of the crime and the lack of shared privilege and equality in that regard. But when you're visiting South Africa, when you don't live here, you don't really feel those things. And so for foreigners who come here, what they love and what, I mean, I love about South Africa is that it is a beautiful country and it's got a beautiful landscape, especially in the Western Cape, which is where I live, or used to live. And it's got an awesome food scene. You can have so many amazing culinary experiences. It's very culturally diverse, which I think for many European countries, that's always exciting because there's often a lack of diversity in European countries. And so people come here and they find that very exciting. It's very new. And we have got nicer weather. Yeah. So
I can
we
see.
get a long summer. But yeah, and I think, I mean, a lot of people say that the South African people are really friendly and welcoming. And I definitely feel that traveling, I've always been well received by other countries when I say that I'm South African. People tend to feel quite excited. They're like, oh, South Africa, like Nelson Mandela and like the World Cup. And so we received quite positively. But I think I would always recommend to people who want to come and experience it that they should. There's so much to do. And I'm almost like jealous of not being a foreigner visiting the country because I have also lived here and I know what the other side of it is.
Yeah.
But I think for people to come and travel, I mean, you should. And other parts of Africa as well are amazing. Our neighboring countries are amazing to go to and experience as to and completely different experiences that one would have. So
okay, and what would you recommend to seeing there? Like, I've heard that South Africa has one of the greatest and the biggest safaris. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's safari is a huge thing to do, and you want to try and go to the places where you don't necessarily know that you're going to see everything, because it makes it more real, and so it's more exciting, because some of the safaris that you go on in 2 days you'll have seen everything, but it's not natural. It's not really what it's supposed to be. So coming to do a safari is an amazing experience, and not just in South Africa. I mean, other countries in Africa have incredible safaris as well. There are other countries that have more unique safari experiences. But I think for me, being in the Western Cape, the wine farms, that's also a very, very cool experience to have. Spending time out there, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think just exploring the landscape. I mean, we have nice beaches, but they're not like beaches in Greece or beaches in so they're not as beautiful as those.
Are they more like wild beaches?
No, they're just really cold. So the sea is freezing. The beaches are beautiful, but they're freezing, and it's funny, like everyone always wonders why I enjoy a beach holiday so much, but it's because our beaches, I don't actually enjoy them that much. So because you can't just go and swim in them, it's freezing. And the safari is awesome, the food is fantastic, there's a lot of creativity, and so people have lots of creative projects and things that add a lot of color, I guess, to the city and to the country.
Okay, I guess it's enough about countries. Let's talk about eco-friendliness. So these days, it's very important to be, I guess, eco-friendly, and really, really important because as we can see, our world in like a lot of images, like in every image or just in nature is suffering, and we are destroying it by our own hands. But there are people, for example, Talia, who is trying to save or just contribute to trying to recycle and reduce pollution. But now it's also becoming a trend. Like people, fake it. They often like show that they are really helping the earth, but for example, they drive sports car or spend their holidays, in America every year. So Talia, what do you think about it, and is it okay?
So I think the whole eco-friendly living green thing, it definitely has become a trend, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because I think it's an important cause, and if anything, just alerting people to the language to understand what that means. But it is a very layered thing, and it isn't just a simple like buying an eco-friendly product. It's understanding what are the different types of eco-friendliness one can have. I mean, recycled is one thing, sustainable is another. So, and then there's many others in between. I think like what I'm super passionate about is in the eco-friendly living is going as plastic free as possible, and being an avid recycler, which I am. I recycle everything. So, but it is really difficult. I mean, it's really, really hard. Like it's to be plastic free, for example, is a hard, like starting with one room. I can finally say that the bathroom in my home is plastic free, but it's taken me a few years to get to that and make those changes. And so I think that in some ways, because sometimes when something becomes a trend, people exploit it. Yeah. And so there's been that exploitation in the market. The fact that something like, I mean, this hasn't really got anything to do with eco-friendliness, but going back many years ago to things that became organic, and buying organic and shopping organic became the status, this trend. Only the rich and wealthy and privileged could afford to do it, when actually organic is how like everyone used to live. Everyone had organic eggs because they had chickens at home who laid their own eggs. They grew their own vegetables. They ate organically. So that is what organic life is. And so, you know, big retail brands, they take it and they sell it. They market it, they brand it, and they sell it. And in smaller ways, it's also happened independent, you know, people making their own soaps, making their own products. They often also can sell things at outrageous prices, and it makes it feel that it's inaccessible unless you have a wealth of money. I think what's important though is if you are going to choose to purchase something or swap out a part of your lifestyle to make it more eco-friendly, it's knowing that maybe the reason why those things cost more is not only because, or trying to find the places that speak explicitly about the fact that they cost more because they're making sure that those laborers receive equal pay, and not because it's a trend. And so if you're going to shop organic, you're not shopping organic just because it says organic on the box, but it means that you would also be very willing to go to the farmer's market and buy the non-perfect looking vegetables from the farmer, because those are also organic. So I think it's just about understanding why are we doing it? Like, as an individual, why are you choosing to make this a lifestyle? And it's a process as well, and it's challenging, and I often feel frustrated with myself, or I'm like, stop at the shops on the way home from work and I forgot to put my reusable bag in, and I have to get a plastic bag. And so those things happen, but mainly I try very hard to my next tackle is the kitchen. So moving plastic free there. But yeah, I think people need to be conscious as to why they've made the choices that they've made.
I've heard like people that they think that what the point, you know, of avoiding of buying is if another people like I know anyways buy things, and like what's the point? And so is global warming too big a problem for example for me or for others to tackle?
I definitely don't think that it is. I think that what's important is building a sense of community that's going to tackle it. And I think that then takes each and every person who wants to make that change. You know, I mean, we've just seen it in something like going through COVID. Communities have had to unite together to help stop the virus from spreading, and it's happened. I mean, we did it in Lithuania. People united, they took the rules seriously, and that's what happens when large groups of people work together. And so I think it's not that you or I or some random individual person is going to tackle global warming. It's that we're going to create the community that is hopefully as a community going to tackle global warming. And
you mentioned Lithuania. How in your opinion is Lithuania dealing with pollution? I
think that Lithuania is doing pretty well. I mean, I've read that the new government that's recently just come in is going to focus a lot on making Lithuania a greener country, which I think is awesome. And I think that just small things like there's recycling bins everywhere. It's very easy to recycle in Lithuania. And I see even in the supermarkets, like at Maxima, some of the plastic packaging is being replaced with cardboard packaging.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love for grocery stores to stop with those little packets and make it just compulsory that everyone must bring their own bags to put their fresh fruit and vegetables in. But I also think that Lithuanians come from, many people who still live, as the term that I've been told is, the village. And so people who come from more of that village lifestyle, they have their own little greenhouses and they're growing their own, apple trees, and holding on to that, I think, is so important, not allowing that to be squashed out by mass consumerism and large supermarkets and things like that. And so I think in that way, because of Lithuania's history, and now because of how Lithuania is entering into the world now, there's choices that can be made that can be sustainable choices, because Lithuania is fortunate in that way. Some countries are so far down the rabbit hole that to start over is just, one doesn't know where to begin. You have to unite a whole country in it to move forward. Lithuania is lucky that there already is that natural way of living. And so I think if the country continues to be led positively like that, I think that it will continue to be positive. But I think it's pretty good. I mean, also the electric cars, I know there's arguments and debates that they're not that eco-friendly and etc., but the point is that people are conscious, they're aware, and they're also, the country is making it easier for people to make those kinds of choices, which I think is really important.
Okay, and lastly, I guess, what do you think is it still possible to stop global warming and have a great life on Earth?
I don't know. I mean, I would love to say yes. I also do feel that the Earth has a natural warming, and I do think that is a natural part of the Earth's life cycle, unfortunately. I don't know what it means for us humans. But I do think that I do not think that should ever be an excuse for people. Mm-hmm. I think we are damaging this planet all the time. We're wiping out species of animals, of insects, of plant, and it's really terrible. And it's also really sad because people have stopped caring about themselves, and they don't care what they're putting into their bodies, and they don't care what they're putting on their bodies and what they're breathing in. And I mean, like COVID is an example of something that's coming that, affect human species. Yeah. And so I think people don't even have to look at it from this idea that, oh, I'm helping to fight the cause of global warming. They can just say, oh, I'm opting to live a healthier life myself. So I think it's so much about that as well. And I think it can be slowed down, but I think there's a definite want for it to be slowed down. I think it's about having the right leadership though, and so many countries just don't, and there's just like that squashing. But that doesn't mean that people shouldn't try, because it just sometimes takes a mountain to move a molehill. So sometimes we just have to work really, really hard. And I think also being an educator and working with the future of the world, I need to stand up for that, because at least I'm imparting that to future generations. So if there was more of that going on, I think that would be one of the big things that would make a change.
I guess everybody's mission is, to take a little step and just try to start being more eco and more, green.
Yeah, and just to become educated. I think actually at the heart of it all is being educated, and I think a lot of people have chosen not to become educated on it because it's actually scary. It's something that is uncomfortably scary to have to see the effects of. And so it's so much easier to just pretend it's not happening.
Okay.
And so people have just chosen that. And I think it's important that people just need to educate themselves. And that is key in moving forward, and not just pretending like, oh, it's fine, it's not going to happen to me, or it's not going to happen in my lifetime, or me throwing this one plastic packet away into the regular trash, I'm not going to be contributing. It's just once.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of mentality that needs to shift.
Okay, guys, so that was it. It was Talia Shaban live from Republic of South Africa. It was very nice to meet you, Talia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the chat. It was great.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you came and decided to tell us our story. So that was it. So guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing and liking. I'll wait comments in the comment section. And it's so awesome that community actually in YouTube is growing, and more people are coming and listening to me and teacher stories. And lastly, it's the last weeks of 2020, so the worst year in history is going to end. So just try to be happy and try not to fail Christmas. Wear masks, stay at home, and be safe. Here we're Talia Shaban and me, Rapolas. See you next time.
Have a good Christmas.